here in the States, another part of belly dance that has really boomed as the kind of the commercial situation, I think, has very much shrunk in recent years. It still exists, it's still viable, but it has been shrinking. But there has been an explosion, really, in dancers who are passionate about this dance, passionate about art, and really have zero interest in the commercial aspect of belly dance, which frankly is not really all that artistic. You know, once you're in the game, it's kind of, you know, you just keep singing the same song because that's what your commercial clients want. They don't want your interpretation of a sunset. You know, they just want this idea of what they feel a belly dancer should be. But we have now a very, as I say, very passionate, very, very active community of dancers who are doing really only theatrical work. They are creating work that they love. It is seen mostly by other dancers that are in this theatrical fusion kind of creative belly dance arena, which is wonderful and engaging. But does that exist at all in Egypt?
No.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
No, and I'm laughing because I'm just imagining all the belly dancers I've ever met in my life over there sitting there like supporting each other, watching each other go, oh, that was amazing. I mean, it happens at festivals. You know, at festivals, I'm sorry, it's just, to me, it's so funny. At festivals, people aren't doing the theatrical thing, but they're definitely trying to put on their best show, for sure, because this is where everyone's going to be seeing them. But these are not dancers going really to support other dancers. They're going more to promote themselves. Now, I love the festival that I work with. I primarily work with Nile Group in Cairo and other festivals. I'm a freelancer, so I can pretty much, you know, go wherever I'm invited. But, you know, you like and you have a nice relationship with the other teachers and you support them, but they're not doing theatrical dance. They're doing what they do. So, like, if I have a folklore group, I'm doing a folklore show. When it comes to theater, you know, it's people think of the Cairo opera, they think of the ballet.
So it's not what we have here, which is a creativity so complete that frankly a lot of these pieces don't even look like belly dance. So you can go to something called a belly dance show now and it's
fusion.
It's Beyonce.
Yeah.
It's you know, wings that light up with LED lights and smoking claws of fire, but the
LED lights.
All to Western music, though.
LED lights, though. I mean,
they're
people,
big.
Well, they love it. They love it on the tenora, okay? They're like, they go crazy. And then some dancers do it on their wings. Not so many in Cairo, but, you know, sometimes. And it's cool for New Year's and stuff like that. But, okay, first of all, in Egypt, I really feel it could be changing a little bit, slowly. It'll be interesting to see where the next few years go. But in general, belly dance is belly dance. Like, I'm an American. I can't be putting my own little flavor into things. I need to be in Egypt doing more Egyptian style. As I became accepted, as I was able to do, then I was able to kind of say, all right, well, I can do a few more little things and kind of throw in my own personality and my own style, which is still, in general, under the umbrella of Egyptian style, by the way, because, you know, when in Rome or when in Egypt. So at the end of the day, I had some fantastic dancers that worked for me as belly dancers in my group who were foreign, amazing, looked fantastic, great dynamics, beautiful costumes. I was like, the foreigners loved them. The Egyptian managers were like, please don't send her back. She's not doing belly dance. Like, they didn't know what to do with that.
Yeah.
So I think that in their realm, pretty much theater is theater. If you're dancing in a play, it could be like modern dance or ballet or contemporary. You know, contemporary is a really big thing. Hardly anybody is doing fusion because it's something that they don't quite get. It's like...
Well, and I would also say, to just interject, that as we discussed earlier, your native-born Egyptians that are doing this dance are hiding it from their families, doing it under an assumed name, and doing it for money, frankly. So here, where this non-commercial genre is coming from, is there's no shame in it. These are women that want to express themselves through belly dance, but that just doesn't exist there as part of the culture. This genre, where are those women? Those native-born Egyptian women are not there.
Okay, so a really cool thing that happens sometimes is there will be some belly dance lessons that happen at a gym, like for ladies only, and that is fabulous. So you'll be at the gym, and there's, you know, and it's like no men allowed. You know, the ladies come in there and they just have fun, and they're having an amazing time belly dancing like they would if they were at home at a party, a girls' party.
Communal.
And they're doing it, but they're certainly not going to be like, okay, well, let's get together and do some numbers. I mean, they do it for each other, but it's just, it doesn't really exist.
It's like a private social interaction with your friends.
Right.
But I figured it didn't, because I think that's very specific here.
But you know what's so interesting is that, you know, I think right now in Egypt, of course, things are changing, but in general, you know, things belong in their own box. So we have music, we have art, we have theater, we have the ballet, we have belly dance, which is like the needle coming off the record, like, you know, that isn't even hardly considered art, even though it's in the media. And when you see a movie, usually the belly dancer is the one who's destroying someone's marriage, or, you know, it's very rare that you see a story where the belly dancer is portrayed in a positive light, you know, the hero, if you will. I've done video clips where I'm a belly dancer in the video clip, and the guy is trying to get me to quit dancing, and he comes into the venue where I'm dancing, and he puts his coat on me and, like, forces me off the stage. I mean, I've done a scene like that, and I thought, that would never happen in real life. You know, but those are the types of things. So, I mean...
It's the narrative there.
It's the narrative. So when it comes to art and when it comes to theater, they're not doing that. Of course, in my international show and in other Russian or international shows that they would have there, they did kind of theater sort of productions. That's where you would see the fusion happening. That's where you would see like a belly dance samba number, or we would do a pharaonic number that was kind of, so, and with folklore, you might see some sort of fantasy with the folklore, like they make a story of the dances, and so that can happen.
That's acceptable.
So that, it's exactly, that's, you know, that's acceptable. You know, that you can put on the television.
But
you know, can you put it on the television? And speaking of television, you know, Dina had this show, Ra'asa, that was showing belly dance, and that was super cool because it was kind of the first time ever, really, you know, outside of just movies or video clips where you would see a dancer, where you got to follow these girls and see what they're doing, and she put it out there kind of for the people. Of course, a lot of people criticized it, but it was kind of brilliant and wonderful too, because she was really trying to say, like, hey, this is a whole other aspect of it, and some of these girls work really, really hard, and we're going to show you, you know, just like these athletes work hard, or just like these singers, you know, everyone watches The Voice, everyone watches Arab's Got Talent. Why wouldn't you watch these girls dancing? And so it was kind of a brilliant idea, and she did that, and there was actually a couple girls that worked for us at different times in Sharm el-Sheikh that were in that show. So I was very proud of them to see that. So I think that is the biggest move that I have seen in belly dance, and like, it was commercial in a way, but it was bringing it to the forefront as an art. And for me, that's been...
And worthy of some respect.
Worthy of some respect, to be on television, to have people judging it, to have people talking about it.
This actually leads me to another question, which is, you know, from having observed Egyptian dancers, you get the idea, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the ones that get to the very, very top, which I think is a small minority that are truly your cultural icons there, Dina being one of them. That if you do make it to the top, you then, well, I'm curious about this, then are they then able to parlay that, since you're doing something that is so small, not really highly regarded in general, but do they then parlay that into singing careers, acting career, modeling career? Like, can they take that to other places? Because it's almost like being like, I hesitate to say like a Kardashian here, but like a, you know, like this kind of minor TV celebrity, but it's in the whole country. Everyone's going to know who you are. Or do they? I don't know.
Okay, so first of all, Dina, I'd like to say, you know, she has had an extensive career for many, many, many years. She has been in the business, and she did folklore. You know, she studied. She has talent, you know, which I'm not going to talk about the Kardashians, but I mean, we're talking, I mean, this is a celebrity who built something on her talent, okay, and because she was beautiful. And then later there were some, you know, horrible things that happened with her in the media that made her more famous. So, you know, they can say even, you know, bad press is good press, and she came out of it beautifully. I had the pleasure of seeing her just maybe about 6 months ago in Cairo and watching her show, and it was fantastic. I think that when you get to a certain level, you can say, well, I can do a makeup line, or I'm going to, I'm going to sing or act. You see people like Fifi Abdu acting, Lucy acting, other actresses maybe singing. You know, you see this little bit of crossover. You see actresses dancing, which is really funny. So it's like they would never dance in their real life as a dancer, but they're an actress and they can play a dancer. That's okay, because they're acting. You know,
it seems like they can. That for these, you know, the creme de la creme, if you will, the ones that really get up there, they can achieve a level of celebrity that is transcending the somewhat negative aspect of being a dancer. That because it's a love-hate thing,
right?
You know,
yes,
you love the dance, and you have your dancers all the time. Yet you don't respect them all, but you love them. Because you got to have them all the time.
And you want your picture with them.
Exactly.
You want your picture. You want to be like this, and you want that as your your thing on Facebook or Instagram.
It's a very interesting push-pull there.
Oh, totally. It is completely that. You know, it's really funny. I used to get a lot of people asking for pictures after weddings, and when you're running, you just don't have time. But then I thought, actually, that's how you get known, is by people seeing a picture of you with the dancer and saying, who was that? Oh my gosh, oh, she was great. And so having that in the social media is very good. I think that there are so very few at the top. There's a whole bunch down at the bottom doing the same thing and doing that for years. And I'm not saying down at the bottom, but I'm saying like the general, just the working, just the working.
Not everyone can be in the stratosphere.
No, and so where am I? I'm not at the top. I'm not at the bottom. I'm somewhere. I'm somewhere in between. I feel fortunate to have some recognition from other classically trained dancers, teachers and choreographers. That kind of takes you, because that's where the workshops and the festivals, there's all these different layers. You have some dancers who work in the cabaret, maybe they're dancing there for 20 years, and everybody in that realm knows who they are, and they're very well known, but they can't go up because they just don't have the means, or they just don't have somebody to push them, to help market them. You have some people who are very talented who just might not get that because they just weren't in the right place at the right time. They get locked
onto their track.
Yeah, and you kind of, I have felt sometimes like a hamster on a wheel. You're just going day goes by, a month goes by, a year happened, and and you said, well, okay, that's cool. I'm still working in the same venues. I booked a few weddings. These managers know where I did a few video clips, but you go, is it really going up? Is it really better? Am I better? Have I done something, certainly not earth-shattering, but have I done something that means something? Am I doing something that means anything? And then some people are like, oh, you're living the dream. And sometimes I have to remember, do you know what? Actually, yeah, I am. Like, I shouldn't be complaining. I should be very, very grateful.
Exactly.
But having said that, you do kind of want more, and you want to say, well, where is this going? How can I be better? What does that entail?
Well, and I think what you just said, and that's really the point, is yes, it's somebody's dream that you've been there and living, and it's been a fabulous experience, good and bad. But as we discussed earlier, the train's got to pull out of the station at some point. So, you can't just be here, and even here we see it with dancers that are dancing for like, a million years. You age out of the commercial game. I know people don't like to hear that. You got to put on the flame retardant suit, but the reality is you do in all forms of dance. In belly dance, we're quite lucky that you actually can keep on trucking far longer than in any other form of dance.
Oh my goodness!
But
you are so
there
right.
is the point of being realistic and saying, all right, there's going to be a point where I don't fit the casting call look anymore. And also, you get tired of it. You change as a person. Right.
Well, I'd like to say something, because Dina is really the exception, and it's magical, because she's somehow just been able to just keep going for more than 3 decades, and she looks amazing. And yes, it's like people could be like, oh, she's had work. Oh, I'm like, you know what? Good for her. She can afford it. She looks great. She has stayed in shape. She's still dancing great. So who cares? Like, don't be a hater. But there will be a time, which is why I think she's invested her money. She's done her shows. She's doing things because at some point she's not going to want to make herself tired.
Exactly.
She's going to want to try to enjoy herself and relax a little more, even if the people will still want her. Because I think they're going to want her forever.
Yeah, well, she
is the exception. Icon. She's the exception to the rule. And none of us will be as lucky as her. So having some backup plans.
Well, just the plan for the future, that as you change and grow in life, you don't always want to be in the same path. Now here, again, in the United States, there has been a path, which I'm not sure it's being followed as much anymore, but that you have your commercial success and your long career, and then many people go into teaching. And maybe they were teaching all along, but eventually the balance shifts and you're mostly teaching.
Great.
Does that happen? I mean,
this happens more in Egypt.
What is the role of schools in Egypt?
Okay.
Like that, I'm curious about that.
So, great question. Okay, there's festivals. So yes, so you have people like Ida Noor, amazing belly dancer, was also so proficient in the folklore dancing folklore and belly dance, who later became a master teacher, coming to New York, being brought here to show us, and then having her festival. Same thing with Ra'ia Hassan, who actually had the first festival, the first big festival. You know, she was a folklore dancer, and took this dance and made Egyptian style, modern Egyptian Oriental dance. I mean, really created something that wasn't really existing in this time, and made a big market out of it, and got people to Egypt, bringing people, getting tourism, making business for the people. Fantastic. So yeah, is there a school? There's not belly dance schools. There's belly dance classes at the gym. But what it is under the tutelage, I would say, of these people who are now, you know, the people who worked as I am working now, but they worked for a number of years, but then they decided they weren't going to perform anymore, and so they went into exclusively teaching, coaching, and mentoring other dancers. So, for example, I might teach private lessons. People might be interested in something I have to teach. But then you've got somebody like Ida Noor or Ra'ia, who has this wealth of knowledge and experience, and they've been around, and people would be probably more apt to want to take with them. Well, that's perfectly understandable, of course, because, hey, they've been in it longer than me. They're there, they've been around, they've been there, done that. They could teach me a thing or two. You know, they deserve that. They deserve that for everything that they've done. They deserve to have that recognition, and they're not performing anymore. So yeah, so what happens is a lot of these dancers, if they can teach, or even if they can't, they learn really quickly how they can teach, so that they can go into the business of teaching. Now, I feel like Ra'ia Hassan and Ida Noor and others like them who had a full, extensive career and were also training people in their work, knew how to be a trainer because they were already teaching. They were already in a place where there was a system. They learned choreographies, so they have that, right? But there's other dancers that just kind of dance around doing Hagafi Masra. This means anything on the stage. And then later, oh, okay, well now I can teach. They don't really have maybe this training in any sort of formal dance, whether it was Egyptian folklore or anything. So for them, it's going to be a little bit more challenging. Maybe in the beginning, they're not going to be so great of a teacher, but maybe as they see other people teaching, they can learn. And so I know that even some of these master teachers teach other dancers how to be teachers. Oh. Yes.
So that's another sub-industry.
It's another sub-industry, teaching these Egyptian girls how they can teach so that they can go out there and do this, because maybe perhaps they would prefer to get invited to Russia or other places out of the country where they can make money and not be belly dancing in their country, but they can be a star on the international workshop circuit, which is a huge newer phenomenon.
Right, exactly.
Right? So now you have these Egyptians who before were just kind of bopping around in the nightclub, and now they're like, oh, I have to come up with a choreography? What's that? Because I never did one, because they didn't do a choreography, they were just dancing around. And so, you know, we have this idea of taking improvisation and making it a choreography, making a system, and they're coming from the opposite side of, you know, now I'm having to make it, and I never did it like that. So it is definitely, it's definitely something interesting, because it makes you think how we have created kind of a monster.
Yeah.
You know, this dance was kind of based on improvisation. It was based on the feeling. It was based on the circumstances and what was going on. It wasn't 1, 2, 3, and 4. You know, it wasn't that. But we've made it that because we needed to do that, and also to make a business out of it.
It makes it marketable.
It does make it marketable, but you know, and now, how sad, you know, some of these great Egyptian dancers who are fantastic at doing this improvisation are having to like go back, kind of
and teach them something that they can sell and resell and package and resell, because improvisation is a hard thing to package for sale.
It is, the skills to do that or something, but absolutely the improvisation itself is kind of like, and you never have that moment again. It's there and then it's gone, and but that's what dance is anyway. Even if it is a choreography, you'll never get that moment back. It was a magical moment that happened on the stage. It was something that happened that day. You might be dancing to the same song tomorrow, but what happened on that day, it will never come back to you again. It will never be repeated. It was just in that moment. It can be beautiful, it can be horrible, it can be an accident, you could fall down. It'll never happen again. And so that's also a wonderful thing, is that if it doesn't go great, there's always tomorrow.
And savor the moment. I mean, that's the point of life. It's just savor it all.
Savor it, enjoy it, and be grateful.
Keep going forward.
Keep going forward, and be thankful for the time that we have while doing it.